Well, the theme of the Christmas lectures, DIY electronics and coding, is a subject really close to your heart. Do we give kids enough encouragement to try their hand at this kind of just tinkering?
I think it's a lot better than it used to be. I think we went through this era where all electronics was black box, and we didn't want to tinker with it. We didn't want to take apart our mobile phones or our radios in the same way that many years ago you would build your own radio and take apart your own radio. And I think we lost that because consumer electronics became very black box. And thankfully, I think we're coming out of that now. It's the young people who are pioneering the way forward, using their electronics, their Raspberry Pis, their Arduinos, etc.
It's funny, isn't it? Because all parents of young children might get out the craft box on a rainy day to keep the kids occupied, but it's much more likely to contain crayons and glue than, wire and circuit boards.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it's confidence with parents and with some teachers as well. I think most parents will be quite happy to get the crayons out, and if what they draw isn't the next masterpiece, well, who cares? That's absolutely fine. You're drawing, and if it's a terrible drawing, well, it doesn't matter because your child has had a good time doing it and maybe learnt something along the way. We don't do that with electronics. We don't go, oh, well, we're going to try and make a little display or a little egg timer for grandma. If we can't make that, well, that's okay. If it turns out and it doesn't work, that's fine. And we've learned something along the way and we've had a good time whilst doing it. We don't seem to have that same sort of mentality with it. And so that's what I'd quite like to try and break down a bit. But I think it's confidence.
And do you think there's also an element of just, parents not knowing where to start, or maybe, to do with electronics, electricity, it might be dangerous?
Yes, yeah, I think there is.
Give a crayon, that's much
yeah.
safer.
Yes, no, I think it is. We need to get across that it isn't dangerous. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be using sort of 240 volts on your wall or anything. Using small batteries and making sure everything's still enclosed, but you still have to supervise them. But it's no different to if you were cooking with your child. You have a gas hob or an electric oven or whatever it is. That could actually be very dangerous for a child, but we don't stop baking muffins on a rainy afternoon. And if the muffins don't turn out very well, hey-ho, who cares? You've had a good time doing it. You've probably learnt something along the way. So I don't see it as being any different really to that, other than the lack of confidence and knowing where to start, like you say.
So you say you're passionate about changing this attitude. What kinds of projects do you encourage parents and kids to try at home? And also, what kind of kit do they need for these?
I think very basic electronics kits, and they don't have to cost the earth either, definitely not. For maybe £10 or something, you can actually get a very basic piece of electronics. So the likes of Raspberry Pi or Arduino type platforms, and then also the new microbits. They're fabulous, sort of a starter for both children and parents actually to get involved in.
So this BBC microbit, it looks like a small circuit board, but it's actually a mini computer in itself. And 1 million of them are being sent out freely to school children aged 11 across the UK. What can you do with them?
You can do sort of entry-level experiments with them. So if you wanted to use it to connect to your mobile phone, for example, it has a wireless connection to it, so it will have a Bluetooth connectivity to it, and so you can connect that, let's say, to your mobile phone, and you could create a snooze button for your alarm clock on your mobile phone. And then very quickly, just with a very, very small amount of coding, you can create some really wonderful things. So with literally just 2 or 3 lines of code, you could create a pedometer, for example. So you use what's called a little accelerometer, which we all have on our mobile phones and the microbit will have as well, to create a small pedometer. So you can measure your steps you're taking, you can measure your fitness. Really, the idea is just to get creative with the coding and the electronics involved in it. And so getting something like the microbit or a Raspberry Pi and doing some just really fun experiments with it. So as a mother, during maternity leave, I wanted to look at what you can do with a Raspberry Pi or a microbit or your piece of electronics, and how would that help new parents. So could you create a little security system for your garden when your toddler is in your garden? Could you create some light-dependent resistor lights so that they only come on for a certain amount of time when you're feeding. So trying to look at things that maybe would be very useful for people on maternity leave or people with young children.
I gather you can use them as a remote selfie, where so you have your mobile phone sort of quite far away from you. Gone will be the selfie stick.
Yes.
You can control your mobile phone from a distance using the microbit.
Absolutely, yes. You can do it all wirelessly. That's the beauty of wireless communication. Yeah.
There you go. And if parents want more information and ideas on the project to try at home, it's all on the Microbit website. Of course, we'll have links from our own Life Scientific webpage. So I have to ask you, Danielle, as a new parent, when are you planning on introducing your daughter Elizabeth to DIY electronics?
As soon as I possibly can, I think. So as soon as she can, she'll start off with building blocks, in the same way that every child does, and building structures and knocking them down. And as soon as she becomes more dexterous and we can sit and create something, probably starting with a microbit, actually, because it's such a great entry-level thing. There's little LED displays on it. You can create little messages on an LED display. So I have sort of a great mental image that we'd be doing something like that, and Elizabeth will create a small message for her daddy, and she'll say, "Look, Daddy, look what I've done," and there'll be a little message coming along on the LED display on her microbit.
Fantastic. Danielle George, thank you very much for sharing the Life Scientific.
Thank you very much.
The Life Scientific was presented by Jim Al-Khalili. The producer was Michelle Martin.